I actually stole an idea from Michael Saylor. So Michael Saylor loves to say that Bitcoin is this economic battery that can be charged with kind of monetary premium. And I kind of agree, with this metaphor. And I was thinking to myself, okay, what if we extend this energy metaphor to the other pieces of the blockchain, not just the battery? So I guess we have, monetary energy, which you can think of as kind of electric energy. And this monetary energy is stored in battery cells, right? So you can think of one token, for example, one Bitcoin or one Ether as being a battery cell that can store this energy. And I guess if you look at the battery, there's kind of two separate ways to charge and discharge the individual energies, battery cells. So the first one is kind of a exogenous process. So you have the market with supply and demand that will pump in energy into the battery, and the battery will store this energy into the battery cells, and the reverse can happen. You can sell and remove energy from the battery.
So
And I guess
buying the token is charging the token. Selling the token
yes,
is discharging the token, right? And so if
exactly.
I can pay you to do push-ups, right? I'll pay you like 1 Ether to do 100 push-ups, and I can pay you to do that labor. I can pay you to do that work, and that is how the stored energy in an asset, in gold, Bitcoin, Ether, can turn into real labor, real work in the real world.
Exactly, yes. And like one of the things that we're trying to design for is the concept of soundness. So what does soundness mean? It means that the energy storage is holds over time, right? So in 10 years time, I still want the energy to be stored in those battery cells. I don't want basically the battery cells to leak. And so that's one way where you can charge and discharge the battery is just by buying and selling the
And
supply
by
and
the way,
demand.
when we're talking about energy here, Justin, right, the metaphor that Michael Saylor used is the same metaphor that you're using. Energy here is value. Specifically,
Yes.
it's monetary value. We're not talking about
Hmm.
like proof of work energy or anything like that. We're actually talking about value being the monetary engine of these crypto economic systems, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I mean, there's various analogies that are rooted in engineering when we talk about money and value. You can think of it in terms of fluid dynamics, sorry, where you have fluids. We talk about liquidity, right, and liquidity pools and things like that. And you can also use heat kind of like heat travels from one place to another. But yeah, I guess for today's podcast, we can use energy as the metaphor for monetary value, as you say, exactly.
Yeah, we've got the energy, we've got the battery cells. Take us further into this metaphor.
Right. So there's another mechanism, which is basically issuance and burn. So here, what you're doing is that you're creating new tokens, so new battery cells, or you're removing battery cells. And here you're not really charging or discharging the battery as a whole. Like the amount of energy stays the same, but you're redistributing things. So when you add, for example, battery cells, you create new tokens. The kind of these battery cells have the property where they all want to have the same value, right? Because they're fungible. So you print new containers, these battery cells, and then kind of you have this flow of monetary energy from the existing battery cells into the new ones until they all have the same value. And it's the exact same mechanism when you're burning. From the point of view of a Bitcoiner, issuance is the root of all evil, in the sense that when you create these new tokens, well, it's kind of leaking from the existing tokens, and so as a Bitcoin holder, you don't like that because you're being diluted.
your energy is getting stolen from you, right? Because new Bitcoins or new dollars or new Ether are completely fungible with old Bitcoins, old Ether. The issuance is just stealing that energy. It's not creating new energy. It's just tapping into the energy that already exists in these other monetary assets.
Exactly right. Yep. Now, that is one component, which is the battery. And then there's kind of another extremely important component in the world of blockchains. And to continue this energy metaphor, think of an electric engine, the engine. So specifically, the engine is going to be a metaphor for our consensus engine. The consensus engine takes in economic fuel, right? And that could be in the form of issuance, right? Which is a way to basically discharge individual cells and take energy and give it to the engine. Or you could feed this engine with another type of fuel, which is the transaction fees. And then the whole point of this economic engine is that as an output is going to give you economic security. And this economic security, which is output, is meant to secure the whole system. And so when you look at the engine, you can look at various things like how powerful is my engine, like how much economic security is it giving me, or you could look at how fuel efficient is it, like how much power do I get per unit of fuel, or you could ask yourself, okay, what is the best type of fuel to feed into my engine? Is there like one type of fuel which is better than the other? Or you could look at what is the ratio of the load that under which the engine is and the power that it has, right? So if you have an economic engine of power, let's say $10 billion, you have $10 billion of economic security, meaning that it costs $10 billion to attack the system. But your load is going to be the economy living on top of that. So if we look at Bitcoin, for example, it's a $1 trillion system. It has $5 billion of economic security. So the load to power ratio is going to be 200, 1 trillion divided by 5 billion. And then you can look at all sorts of metrics like that about your engine and try and understand, okay, what are the properties of my engine? And it turns out that if you take your engine and which is proof of work, and you replace it with proof of stake, then pretty much on every single metric you get an improvement. And it's not just like a tiny improvement like 10% or 20% or 50%. It's 10x better, 100x better, or in some cases 1,000 times better and more.
So we're going to dig into all of these components in more depth, but just to kind of establish these components as part of the intro. So the engine, as you said, is the consensus mechanism. And so
yes.
Bitcoin, of course, uses proof of work. Ethereum in the future will use proof of stake. We're going to get into that. And you also mentioned the fuel is basically, it's economic fuel, right? This is not
yes.
gasoline or petrol. This is fuel that comes from two sources, generally in a crypto economic system. Issuance is the first source of economic power, economic energy, and transaction fees are the second source. But let me ask a question about the engine. So an electric car engine produces something, right? That is motion. It enables right. the car to go from point A to point B. What does a crypto engine for a layer one like Bitcoin or Ethereum produce? Is this consensus? Is this, or more abstractly, does it produce trust?
Right. What is the output of the engine?
Right. Okay. So the output is what I call economic security in the context of consensus. So the way that I kind of think of it kind of graphically is that imagine you have like some sort of Star Wars or Star Trek kind of shield around your spaceship. And, it's providing security. It's like your economic shield. And just to be very concrete, in Bitcoin, it's hash rate, right? So basically, what is the dollar equivalent to your hash rate? So in Bitcoin, the hash rate is 150 million terahashes per second, okay? And each terahash, if you were to go buy, a mining hardware, each terahash will cost you about $30. So you have roughly $4.5 billion of economic security. So if you want to overthrow the Bitcoin system, if you want to perform a 51% attack, you're going to have to buy $4.5 billion of mining hardware in order to get that hash rate. And so you can denominate economic security in dollar terms. Like it's basically your moat, your defense moat. And for Ethereum proof of stake, your security, economic security, is also denominated in dollars. And the way you get the number is basically by looking at the total amount of ETH staked. So right now we have 3.5 million ETH. At current prices, this is over $6 billion. So even today, this very nascent proof of stake system in Ethereum has more economic security than Bitcoin.